Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. Today I'll be talking about my favorite books so far from the first half of 2020. Now, one of my resolutions for this year was to read more books, and more specifically was to read one book every single month. And I don't know why or how this happened, but I really fell in love with reading books this year. And I've read almost 12 books already in the first 6 months of the year, so I'm already reaching my goal. Those are non-fiction books in personal development, business, and finding your passion. So I've been reading a lot of books about different topics that I'm interested in, and I've absolutely loved it. So expect more book videos in the future, but in this one I want to talk about my favorite books so far that I've read in the first half of this year. Now, the first two books I want to talk about, I recommend going hand in hand. The first one is called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the second one here is The Power of Full Engagement. And when I read these at the beginning of this year, I found it really funny because they both mention each other in the books, which was really interesting to see. I just kind of picked them at random, and they ended up talking about each other in the books, which is really cool to see. But this is a definition of a good example for never judge a book by its cover. So you can see here the cover is extremely business, boring looking, nothing fancy about it, but the insights in this book are life-changing. Like, I learned so much by reading this one book and then following it by this book, The Power of Full Engagement. These two books have really set the course of the work I'm doing this year. Now, there's a bunch of knowledge in both of these books, obviously, and the 7 habits that this book is referring to are very important. But what I found much more insightful were the actual lessons and examples given in the different chapters of the book. So in this book especially, it talks about very specific tactics you can learn to plan your life, finding the why and the purpose behind everything you do. It's really, really important. And because of that, I was able to really spark a passion behind the work I was doing. Once you figure out that purpose and what you stand for as an individual, you're able to drive yourself into doing work that you actually want to do. And I can't do it justice by just talking about it like this. There are other examples in here, like setting goals, building systems, how to really plan out your week. All of that fun stuff is in this one book, and it's really encouraging to read. And The Power of Full Engagement, this book actually was very, very helpful to read. If you feel like you're always running out of time in the day and you're not getting enough done, or you're feeling like there's not enough time in the day to begin with, this book really teaches you that it's not about the hours in the day. We all have 24 hours in the day, and that's not going to change. That's a level playing field for all of us. But what does change is the energy that we have that we put into those hours. So rather than focusing on the time and the hours in the day, what you want to focus on instead is getting more energy to put into those hours. And this book really talks about different ways you can get energy, where energy comes from, how to make the most of it, and what to avoid to deplete your energy as well. So this was just a change of perspective for me. I always thought about making more hours of the day would be an amazing thing to do, but in reality that doesn't matter at all. What really matters is how you spend those hours and how much energy you have inside you to put into those hours. Now, the next two books I want to talk about are about relationships, and they're called The 5 Love Languages, as well as Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. And they're both written by the same author, Gary Chapman. And I want to just preface to give some context behind this. I got engaged earlier this year in January, and one piece of advice I got very early on that I'm super grateful for is always try your best to learn from other people, and don't be afraid to ask for advice and feedback, and just try to learn as much as you can. Because everyone goes through relationships, and chances are if you're going through something, other people have gone through that as well. And there's always something you can learn by talking to other people or reading resources online. And I wanted to take that to heart, and I'm so thankful that I did, because these books are not just good for your relationship if you have a partner, but also with your friends, your family. These things really teach you a lot. And the 5 love languages especially, this is really, really helpful for understanding how to express appreciation and love for people you care about. Everyone speaks a different love language, and the love language that you speak may not be the same as someone else. So if you're trying to show someone you appreciate them and that you love them, you can't always just do it the way that you would want to be treated. You want to treat people the way that they want to be treated. And that is what you learn in this book, the 5 different love languages to express your love for other people. And it also teaches you about yourself as well. How do you receive love? How do you want to receive love from other people? So that's very, very simple and very, very insightful. The Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married, this is an excellent book. It's very quick read. And I would strongly suggest, even for people who are single and not in a relationship, this will really show you what to look for in a relationship, in a partner. And if you are in a relationship like myself who's engaged right now, this is a great thing to go through with your partner and just discuss different things before getting married. Small things like who will take the trash out, but more important things like apologies and forgiveness and other ways to build upon your relationship and to avoid conflict later on for things that you may not discuss until after marriage. So this really gives you a good insight and a preface to what you should expect to be talking about later on in your relationship. Moving along over here, my next book here is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, and I have to say that this one book is one of my favorites of all time. I'm a huge personal finance junkie, and I actually read the first edition of this book many years ago when it came out, and this is the second edition, and I bought the second edition because he added a ton of new resources and updated a lot of the information on here. And if you are a young person who is just starting your career and just getting a job for the first time that is like a full-time job, this is a must read. The earlier you read this book, the better off you're going to be. It teaches you everything from managing your debt, paying it off, the importance of compound interest, how to invest your money for the long term. And this will really, really actually make you rich. Maybe not right away, but it will set you up for success later on in life. And I am beyond grateful for reading this book when I did. And I've passed that knowledge along to my immediate friends and family. And this has made a big difference. So if you are not sure how personal finance works and how to manage your money and how to make it grow so you can retire comfortably, this is a must read. Please get this book. It will change your life. The next book I want to talk about is called Linchpin by Seth Godin. And this book was an interesting read, to say the least. I was not a fan of the writing at first, but once you get into it, it's super, super important to read a book like this because it's really great, first of all, for anyone who is working full-time and has a job. And what it really talks about is how not to be a cog in the machine. And it really goes in depth about how our education system and the way we all grew up, especially here in America, is all about being a replaceable worker in a job. And this talks to you about how not to be that person who can just easily be replaced at work, and how it no longer means to be really good at your job to be considered a top performer. You have to be above and beyond that. And it talks about the very specific things you can do to be the new type of top performer that we need in today's workforce. And I found this to be very, very useful. It talks about a lot of things, especially if you're looking for a job, the types of jobs you should be looking for, how to be approached by companies rather than submitting your resume to a bunch of other people, how to become that desirable candidate so people are coming to you instead of you going to them. And especially in times like right now, where layoffs are so common and whatnot, being that one person that stands out, who is different from everybody else, who is not easily replaceable, this book is great at teaching lessons around that topic. The last book I want to talk about in this video is Front Row at the Trump Show by Karl. And if you're interested in politics at all, like me, I watch the news all the time. This is an amazing book, an amazing perspective on what is going on behind the scenes at the White House. Karl is the chief news correspondent for ABC News, and he's been on the ground at the White House for all the major events that have happened in Trump's presidency. And what makes this book so insightful is that John actually knew Trump from many, many years ago, and he has so many stories of how Trump is who he is today because of his past experiences and how those connect. And it's just amazing to see the behind the scenes of the election campaign, all the crazy events that happen behind the scenes, and how Trump operates in his mind. And it will definitely trigger you if you are a political junkie and are really upset with the way things are going right now. But if you're interested in just seeing the stories of what reporters see on the ground, this is a must read. I was just captivated the whole time I read this book. So one of the more fun books I read this year. I definitely recommend it if you want a fun read. So those are all the books I have for you today. I have read a few more than this, but these are my favorites thus far. And I want to just leave this by saying I plan on doing more of these book reviews moving forward. And I think I'll be doing some blog posts about certain books that I like a lot and just kind of talking through the review in more depth. So if you want to see those, subscribe to my newsletter down below. I'll be mailing those out more regularly, but I do plan on doing more of these larger book review session videos like this in the future. So be sure to subscribe for that too if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.